All right, welcome everyone to the September 2021 edition of the Boston Office 365 user group. Thank you all for coming. Sorry for the slightly late delay, but we are on a roll now, right? All right. So organizers of this group are Dimitri, Mike, myself, and Mr. Bill Gunning, who is actually going to be one of our guest speakers today. If you guys have any questions about the group, if you guys have any things that you're interested in hearing about, or if you're interested in speaking, please feel free to reach out to any of us. This group is all driven by the users. So, we want to present to you guys the content that you want to see. So let us know what that is. And I assure you, we can find somebody who knows that stuff. All right. Last month, we had Mr. Rob Windsor present an introductory to the Microsoft Identity Platform. And that while that is not up on YouTube quite yet, it should be within the next week or so. So keep an eye out for that. And thanks to Rob for presenting that for us. In the meantime, we're going to go over some updates that were made to Office 365 over the course of the past month. Please keep in mind, Microsoft releases over 200 updates per month. And that number is actually really old. I'm sure it's far more than that now. So this is not a total list, but we curated a few of the big ones for you that we thought might be interesting. So the first one, we had two really big announcements from Microsoft. I see one as kind of a carrot and a stick, so I'm going to start with the carrot. So our carrot is audio conferences have been extended to all of the Microsoft suites. I'm not real sure what the effective date is on this. I've only seen it connected to the other announcements, which had an effective date of March 1st, 2022. So if anybody in our audience knows exactly what the effective date of this particular component is, please just put that in the chat or let us know. I'd love to know that, and could not find it. But yeah, for those of you that aren't aware, what this refers to is the ability to dial in from a POTS line, a plain old telephone system line. So you can dial in if if you're somewhere rural or just having really bad audio connections, you can dial in and grab the audio for a Microsoft Teams meeting. That's exactly what this component is. As of right now, this is only available included in the M365 and O365 E5 plans, and would have to be ordered as a standalone license for anything else. And it was about, I believe they raised it from $2 to $4. Yeah, it was $4 per user per month. But now that's going to be integrated into all of these following plans. So hooray for that. More usability. So that's great. And this is why. Microsoft has announced that they are going to be raising the prices on almost all of the bundled suites that are available. We have all of the pricing, both current pricing and new pricing, listed here with the change. The only one that is not changing price is the M365 E5. So their Cadillac product they felt was pricey enough and are sticking with that. But Coming up next, Windows 11 has an official release date, and that will be October 5th. So on October 5th, if you have a Windows 10 computer that qualifies from a hardware standpoint, you can get a free upgrade to Windows 11. And also computers that are preloaded with Windows 11 will be available on sale as of October 5th.
I just upgrade my work machine, just go right to 11.
There you go.
Windows 11 hit my laptop, Surface laptop.
Did it? Nice.
Yep, and one of the key requirements is that what Mike alluded to is that your system must have TPM. If it doesn't have TPM, it's not going to load or upgrade.
Yep. And we can do a completely separate session on how to bypass that requirement.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's separate. All right. Next up.
Do you really want to bypass it?
Chrissy says it's good.
Next session.
It is. Well, no, the TPM is good. It's all about security.
That's not what I meant. I meant Windows 11, but sure.
Yeah.
Oh, no, yes. Oh, I thought you were talking about the TPM. Sorry. Yes, no, Windows 11 is good. So far, I like it. I'm still experimenting with it, but it's good. The only thing I'm crossing my fingers because Zoom It, which comes from Microsoft, hasn't yet been upgraded to be compatible with Windows 11.
Okay. All right. Couple of Teams updates to report. There's going to be new presenting options. There's going to be both a side-by-side and reporter modes that are coming. We will also be able to change the meeting recording playback speed. So this will be super helpful if you're just trying to scan through to look for that one tip that you couldn't get down quick enough, or that one screenshot that you were looking for. Could be very helpful.
When I upload the videos, I'm always cutting out dead space sometimes. So it probably does things like that, speeds it up.
Yeah, I don't get the impression that there's any AI involved in this, Bill. I think it's literally just a button that you click that plays it at 1.5 is what I'm guessing. I haven't seen any screenshots of what this interface would look like or anything, but that's what I'm guessing it is. I don't think it's going to do anything smart like just cut out, pregnant pauses or anything like that.
Oh, and by the way, Mike, I'm not sure if you're looking at the chat. Tiny posted the Office 2021 standalone, not Office 5, will be released this fall. Tiny, are you referring to the desktop in the cloud? Is that what you're referring to? That, which I thought that was being pushed out next year, but I could be wrong.
Yep. Yeah, they said yes, desktop. Yep. Alrighty.
Sorry, anyone know the exact date? Because I thought that was next year.
Okay. We're also getting some new organization of breakout rooms and management. This is an area that they've been kind of tinkering with quite a bit. We've had a lot of announcements around that in previous sessions. And I know that this is a highly requested one. People complain about this and request this a lot. Renaming a channel is going to rename its corresponding folder in the document library.
Finally.
Yay. Rachel's a fan, I see. I applaud this move, but I'm sure that there will be some unexpected issues. I would be willing to guess. So anyways, also end-to-end call encryption is going to be enabled. So for those that are looking for that, got that coming. Here's another interesting one that I wanted to pull out. It's kind of a standalone, but I thought that this was very significant because, again, a lot of people have been asking for this for a really long time. There is now an extension for DLP options inside the Power Platform to enable endpoint filtering. So a huge use case for this that people have been asking a lot about is the ability to allow SQL, but not all SQL servers. And so it gives you the ability to blacklist or whitelist specific servers or endpoints.
Oh, nice. Through the data gateways?
So, no, it would be in the DLP settings through the admin console. So probably through the security and compliance console in the admin portal. You'd have to set up a DLP rule for it.
Well, it must work in conjunction with gateways or something.
Well, your gateways would either work or not work to it.
Okay.
I don't know how transparent it would be about telling you. One would hope that it would give you something nice and clean, like this action is forbidden by your administrator. But it could give you some other fun errors, like cannot communicate, and leave you searching the internet for days. All right. So that's all I've got for updates. Anybody else here have any big updates that I missed out on? It's kind of brief this month.
Associated hubs. The sub hubs are here.
Associated hubs.
Saw that one announced yesterday.
Oh, no. You have a hub to hub.
I call them sub hubs because
sub hubs. Really good. Oh, I don't like that.
But
I like associated.
Apparently, from what I saw,
I like it because it's fun to say.
It's just fun to say. Yeah. Associated hubs allow you to associate another hub with your hub so that your search can be broadened.
Extend the search scope. That'll be good.
So like partnering hubs.
Associated hubs.
Or in a way that they're sort of getting into a poly hierarchy.
Yeah, which was what we need, hub. Right. Again, I like sub hubs, so
Well, but that could be good because you can search down or search.
I've got project management teams that are hub to my PMO hub, but it would also be nice to associate that particular project that is associated with R&D, or might be a different project that's associated with regulatory. So that is going to be huge for me.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Interesting. All right. I think that's interesting because people have been asking for that for a really long time. And we were always concerned, like, well, how could they do a sub hub directly? Because they've built so many parameters around setting templating and permissions around the hub itself. Yeah. So if you had sub hubs, the possibility of conflicts and resolution would be incredibly complicated.
Well, obviously links can't be inherited and news won't be inherited, but it looks like it's, from what I saw, it looks like it's search. So.
Right.
But that's good. That's the biggest thing.
Posted that yesterday on Twitter.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's great. Good catch. Thanks, Deb. Anybody else? Any other big pieces that we missed?
Well,
I know there's been a lot going on.
Greg in the chat put, of course, what Chris Bartlett had shared out on LinkedIn a couple of days ago.
The preview
For Viva. Yeah.
Yep. That's very cool.
So how long between the software called Viva sues Microsoft for calling something Viva?
So Scott has a question.
Sure. Go ahead, Scott.
Just in addition to the list, there is a bit new in Visio land. It's actually, you might talk about this last month. I wasn't at last month's meeting, but
we did.
Okay, yeah. There's the free version with M365 across the board.
Right.
So.
Yep.
Cool. Thanks,
Scott. Do you know when that's supposed to roll out?
It is rolling out currently. It's
It is
just
currently
being,
rolling out. Okay.
yeah, it's being staged. And it goes to commercial accounts first. I don't know the timeline for educational and government accounts.
Yeah, because Rachel and I were trying to figure that out the other day, but both of us already had the premium version of it installed, so it made it very
Right.
difficult to tell.
Exactly. And same with me too. And I think you still would need a Visio plan if you need to work in the desktop version. Because
And
what's
in fact,
rolling
you
out
must
is just
have-
the web.
You must have Visio Plan 2 specifically to have the desktop component.
Oh, okay. So the viewer online is the free part, and then
Wait, that's okay. So this does not include the desktop at all?
The free bit, no. There are actually 4 components now. There is the viewer, which works in any browser on any device, with very few exceptions.
Mhm.
There is the free bit that now comes with M365 or soon will, and it allows you to create diagrams in a browser, but a limited set of diagram types. Then number 3 is Visio Plan 1, which is, it's existed for several years now. It's the version that allows you to create diagrams in any browser, but a much broader set of diagram types and broader capabilities than the new free thing. And then there's Visio Plan 2, which includes everything I've already said, plus the desktop piece that has more capabilities than Visio 2019 Professional. So it's essentially all the online stuff plus Visio Pro on steroids in Plan 2.
Awesome.
Is that clear?
yes,
It's as clear as anything in Microsoft
It's-
licensing can be.
for
Yeah.
now.
Exactly.
And I still hate
Awesome.
the names Plan 1 and Plan 2 for product descriptions. I mean, come on.
You know what? I'll take it though, because when they mess around with these other things, you can't even tell which one
Right.
has more, which one inherits all of the features of the other.
Right.
I'll say that. You're right. That's true.
So, but yeah, we actually, I had a dedicated slide to this announcement last month, and we were actually looking for you in the audience. We called you out like, "Where's Scott?"
Sorry about that. I'm actually.
We've got the Visio MVP.
I was planning to put just such a slide together for a couple of things I've got coming up. So
Nice.
Nice. All
That's
right.
great. Awesome. Well, also in other slightly Visio related news, I saw if anybody was on the Power Apps community call this week, which actually just ran yesterday, Reza Dobrani, I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. I need to have it in front of me to say it right. So my apologies if I mispronounced that. But he did a presentation that was utilizing a Power Apps interface that integrated with both Visio and Power BI, all on a single plane. And it was just gorgeous. It was absolutely amazing. So I highly recommend that. I'll put a link to his dedicated video on that in the chat.
Nice.
And I really recommend you guys check that out. It's an amazing example of what can be done.
Oh yeah.
So
Especially
And-
now with COVID, if you want to reserve a desk, you could have a Visio diagram of your office, click on
Right.
it, see details.
desk reservations was done
That is
as
really
one
cool.
of the things. Yeah.
Right. So you can do it all on O365 without hiring a developer, without going to .NET. And, yeah.
Yep.
And there is actually one other announcement that I almost forgot, but now I can't remember the name of the company. Microsoft has made another acquisition of a video editor, and that's now
neat.
under the Microsoft umbrella. But now, for the life of me, I can't remember the name of that company. If anyone remembers it, feel free. I'll try to pull it up. But that was actually just, I would say, maybe only in just the past week.
I think that's great. That's actually it's a segment that I would love to see Microsoft be able to get more into. especially with them moving around stream and stuff. I'd love to see something integrated in there where maybe we have like a web interface to kind of edit these videos on the fly. That would be
I took a
awesome.
look at the video editor. It looked pretty good, but now, oh shoot, now I have to remember the name. But I'll try to dig up the link and I'll put it into the chat.
Yeah, that sounds great. All right, so I think that should do it for updates. We'll have, if there's more stuff that you guys want to talk about, we're going to have an open Q&A after the fact, and also a cyber mingle after this meeting without the recording. So that's where we can get into the really deep dirt. And
then after the recording, we ask about jobs and if you're looking or if you're offering a job. So
yeah, plenty of opportunity to chat more later.
Yep.
Or if you know of any other events.
Our presentation.
We mentioned some events here, but there might be more. So if you know of more.
Yep. Well, we're going to talk about more events right after the presentation. Right. So I did just want to give a quick shout out to our platinum sponsor, which is Turn Digital. They help us keep the lights on here and pay for all the stuff that we forgot to send out notices to for this meeting. So our apologies on that. But we really appreciate Turn Digital and the support that they offer to this group. It's wonderful. And they've been very good to us. But now we're on to the main event, which is learning to cook with Power BI and making it sizzle. What a great title, guys.
Isn't it? You like that?
All right.
You like it? You like it? We're going to
Chrissy and Bill of our very own.
All right, so this is unrehearsed, Chrissy and I. This is we're going.
I'm starting to
present?
share.
Yeah.
Oh, come. There it is.
There we go.
Why is it? That is odd. Okay, cool. All right. Welcome, everyone. And it's Bill and ourselves, and we're going to be learning to cook with Power BI and making it sizzle. And even though, yes, it's a presentation, and yes, there's going to be live demos, and there's screenshots with the slide decks, but it's also part of a conversation, a fluid conversation that Bill and I are actually just going to toggle back and forth.
Right.
And even though, yes, there's questions at the end, but Phil, we want to make this as interactive as possible. Drop a question in the chat, and Mike, you're monitoring the chat. Should there be questions? So
that'd be great.
Feel free to interrupt us at any point in time.
And we're going to be going over all the topics and the vocabulary of Power BI. And when we get to that appropriate slide, feel free to ask a question. So we're going to try to cover each of the vocabulary, each of the major sections, and we're going to try to stay one-on-one and just getting started. But feel free when it's appropriate, that slide, to ask us anything else more technical. Okay? All right, so my name is Bill Gunning. If you know me, I'm one of the organizers in the Boston Office 365 group. I was with the group from the beginning. Prior to that, I was in the SharePoint user group, and then we started the Office 365 group, along with Chrissy from back. And then I recently became one of the organizers. I work for the office, the Commonwealth Executive Office of Technology, Security, and Services. And there I'm one of the technology leads in the enterprise platform team. So we look at things such as Jira, or the enterprise tools, Power BI in the Office 365 space.
Hi, I'm Chrissy Haluk. Yes, the G is silent. I'm Dutch by marriage. And as the name of the company implies, I am a SciTech librarian. I opened up my business about 6 years ago, summer of 2015, and all my contact details is there, or feel free to scan the QR code. That will link out to my website at Librarian at Your Service, where you can find LinkedIn. Feel free to connect to me on there. Follow me on Twitter as well, and also my blog as well, which I've recently updated, so it's in development. And for any of Ghost developers out there, my blog is actually on Ghost, and I'm actually liking it. I'm not a huge story writer, but I'm getting there. But if you're a fellow Ghost user, let's also have a chat too. And so as a librarian, I do work in M365 and searches and analysis outside of M365, but I usually incorporate M365 and any of its elements in the ecosphere in there. So that's me. And as my blog implies, yes, I am a scuba diver along with my husband.
Right. So that's just the categories. Chrissy, go ahead, Chrissy, because this is your list you put together.
So basically, just so you know where all the organization for tonight's presentation, conversation, banter, however you want to talk about it, it's the playlist. And we are basically just going to be talking about the what of what Power BI is and all of its elements, the who in terms of the roles of Power BI, because depending on how you use it, from developing to consumer, the roles can actually vary, and how you actually put stuff together. And to follow on just alliteration there will complete the picture with a recap, a rehash of a couple of resources, and the R for responses just means Q&A. But again, you don't have to leave the Q&A until the very end, because you can interrupt us at any point in time.
And then we have links at the end of our slides.
Conversation.
We have a lot of links at the end of our slides, and we recap everything at the end. And on the bottom right of our slides, we'll include them on our Boston Office 365 website. And there's links you'll see wherever the round dot is. So when you do download our slides, you can click and get more information.
And then following we're going to have a little bit of a show. It's only about 3 minutes. And this was about 10 years ago at an event that was probably the predecessor of Ignite, because back in 2010, It wasn't referred to as Ignite. But as we watched the video, you could actually get a sense of that's what it is. And this guy here is Amir, and he's actually still with Microsoft.
Yep.
And he was one of the instrumental engineers and developers of what was Project Crescent, because as we probably all familiar with, most of Microsoft products have a particular code name before they were branded.
I'm not hearing it, Chrissy.
Yeah.
Project Crescent is a new set of technologies. Woo! Based on Silverlight and SQL Azure, Amir Netz, a distinguished engineer in the SQL team, is going to show you a scenario of a business user accessing and managing data about films and how this information can inform decisions about, say, things like marketing or demand gen across multiple different cities. So Amir, take it away.
Thank you, Bob.
Good to see you.
Now, Amir, you introduced this project called Crescent, which I think is a very well-received product. You want to tell us what Crescent is about?
Well, I love Crescent, but I did not announce Crescent. I announced Project Crescent.
Okay. I don't hear the difference, but go ahead.
Crescent. And yes, we announced today Crescent, and Crescent is an end-user tool, BI tool, that allow people to go and visualize data, interact with data, do reporting on top of data in a way that I don't think has ever been done before.
So that sounds a lot in a way like Power Pivot, which you introduced a while back. How are these two things related?
Well, this kind of, you can think about it as stage 2 after the introduction of Power Pivot. Power Pivot was really about allowing people to go and collect the data that they want to use in the BI application, add the business logic, create this kind of core model that they use for the BI application, and then they can use Excel to analyze the data. Crescent takes one step further, maybe many steps further. It allows people to do things that they cannot dream of doing just with the analysis in Excel. Great new visualization, great new interactivity, and we do it all in the browser. It's a browser-based experience, so you don't need to deploy anything to the client, and it's very immediate, very fast. And wow, it is fun.
So one of the things you talked about today was the integration with PowerPoint and how you can use Crescent to do that. Do you want to explain? I think it's a functionality called storyboarding.
Yes, so storyboarding is a great feature that we have in Crescent. And what it really does, it allows users to go and create these views and play with the view and find nuggets of data to take a snapshot of that state of the report and add those to add the snapshots to other snapshots that I've created, and together those set of snapshots tell a story with the data.
And the story is offline once you put it into PowerPoint,
No,
or what
the
happens?
story is online. So basically, you take the storyboard, you export it to PowerPoint, and then in PowerPoint now you have those slides that have those reports embedded in them, and the data in the report is live. So you can go in and slice and dice and do all these operations directly inside PowerPoint. It's just a fun way to go and present your data in PowerPoint, but with the power of the analytics.
I can only imagine the business user is going through their business review and wanting to drill into the data. That's going to be great functionality.
It's great. You know, the reaction we're getting from people, you should have seen here. We had 20,000 people, and they've never seen Crescent before. It's the first time that we showed it. And there were some elements that they basically were on their legs cheering, clapping. They were so excited because they realized how useful this could be to them, how we can make them look so cool to their manager.
So you've seen how with Crescent, we were able to create gorgeous presentation, interact with data. We were able to go and learn something and share it with others. This is Crescent, and this is how we make our customers be what's next. Thank you.
Okay, so hopefully people were entertained with Project Crescent. And if you wanted to rewatch the video, you can. Because the link, is in the slide. And when you go to the video, and it does come up from a Microsoft channel, there's the old link that is on the video that is Microsoft.com/BI, and that link is still an active link because when you click on it, it will resolve to, drumroll, Power BI. Okay, Bill, you take it away here. Oh.
You're muted, Bill.
Oh,
So it's a great video, shows you the history where it started. There's been a lot of BI tools out there. So Power BI, this is a slide I use for a couple of agencies I work with. And I try to start Power BI with a conversation like, what do you want to do? What's the story? What are you looking for? You can do dashboards, data analysis, anything you could have done in Cognos or Tableau, you can do in Power BI. Data modeling, it's not quite as sophisticated something as a Cognos, but you can still get your data. You can do some modeling, configure your data. Anything else you want to say on this slide?
It's all that you just have to remember when it comes to Power BI, and in that conversation more than 10 years ago back in Project Crescent, we alluded to it about the storyboarding, and that's what you're trying to do with the data is that you're telling that story. And when I talk to any sort of my clients, any users, and when dealing with Power BI, it is about that transformation and going from the raw data to the knowledge, because it's transforming that information to knowledge, and we know that difference in scale of where that difference area is, because when it comes to knowledge, it's what's most applicable to yourself, to your business, to your team. You know what I'm saying? So
Yep.
It makes it more relevant. Yeah.
So again, we're going to try to keep these as open conversation. Feel free to chime in, ask a question. What does Power BI mean to you? We have another slide that has.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
So really, Power BI, Power BI and Excel, both are, I think, are the tools. A lot of people are moving from Excel to Power BI, but both tools have Power Query in common, where you can transfer and see the data. So when you connect the data in Excel, live data, or other sheets of data, you're using Power Query. So they both rely on a similar technology platform to bring in data. So when people are wondering, when to work from Excel or Power BI, this is a great slide to kind of work people hopefully out of Excel or pick the right time to use the right tool.
Exactly. And this Venn diagram actually comes from Helen Wall. She is a data instructor. If you're on LinkedIn a lot, the link there is a link out to her LinkedIn page, and she posts quite good stuff out there.
Yeah.
And she even has a whole bunch of courses on LinkedIn Learning too, which is another medium that you can use if you just even want to use any sort of refresher on it. So it's there. And a lot of people that may just be starting out, they may actually be power users in Excel. So that might be the common evolution. But it's not even so much as an evolution because, again, it's tools that complement each other. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot of LinkedIn. I love going to people's LinkedIn sites just to get more information. So you don't have to be on a traditional blogging site. So that's why my LinkedIn, I connect with a lot of people, developers at Microsoft. Every time I go to a Microsoft meeting, I try to connect with people on LinkedIn just to find their posts.
Oh, and Bill, actually, it's interesting you made mention of that. Now, it's not really new anymore. I think it's already been out a couple of months or even about a year now. But there's the LinkedIn Creator Mode, and of course, if anyone out there is really developing in the Creator Mode on LinkedIn, feel free to chime in. That's something that I haven't really explored too much about. What about
I
you?
haven't tried that yet. I have to try. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And if anyone out there is there, feel free to chime in or post in the chat too.
All right.
Okay.
This is Scott. I'm using Creator Mode, not aggressively, but it changes the order in which things appear on your profile page. It alerts you to things that ways in which people interact with things that you post. So it has those values for me, even just using it minimally.
Oh, nice. Oh, I like that. So it definitely seems like it boosts the engagement level a bit then.
Yes, that's a big part of the intent behind it.
Ah.
Nice.
Nice. Yeah, so as we all know, Power BI is a free tool. Anyone could download it. And you could start using it immediately, but as a free user. But there are these are the just a few of the differences and advantages to having that Power BI Pro license. Now, a lot of these key points is taken from a blog from Burning Suit. And it, believe it or not, it was actually posted 3 years ago, but the differences there are still relevant today. And when it comes to the Pro license, now if you're on the Cadillac version of environments, i.e. E5 or A5 or G5, depending on what sector you're in.
I'm on G3. You can buy it separately.
G3, you have to pay for it separately. But if you're on the 5s, it'll be complete. Power BI Pro is completely included. That any user on an E5 doesn't have to pay extra for a pro license. So now my tenant's E5, so I get it automatically. Now, Bill, you're E3, so you have Pro as the add-on license.
Right. I have a G3. I'm in a government tenant, so I have a G3. Some of the features I have are slightly delayed. But yeah, I have the G3 and the add-on Power BI license. Okay. And we're going to talk more about Power BI free versus Pro. So here's the parts of Power BI. So Power BI, we talked about the desktop version, and there's two ways of downloading it. You can do the store, and that kind of is the way you start with the free version of Power BI. It's going to be that limited feature set. If you download it from Microsoft Download, you have more features. I found out the hard way that you cannot use the store version of Power BI to connect to Oracle databases, for example. So I had a couple of different machines. I was working on my laptop, and I guess I used the store for Power BI there. I'm like, wait a minute, I was connecting to Oracle, and then I found out, oh, I have different downloads. So be conscious of where you go to download Power BI. So I like to download it from the Microsoft Download Center. Power BI is a desktop application, and when you publish, you move. So when you develop your report here on the left, and you click this publish button, you're actually moving it to Power BI Service. And Power BI Service is the online version of Power BI. And that's where people would typically consume or view your Power BI report. They would be viewing it from your Power BI service. In Excel, you would share the Excel file with everybody. Everybody would co-edit the Excel file. Or Power BI, the intention there is to use the desktop and then publish it to the service. We have some links here to Power BI Service. And if you don't want your information in the cloud, some government agencies would, instead of using Power BI Online Service, you can actually download Power BI Report Server. So if you purchased, you have an Office 365 tenant, you have Power BI, your license also covers you to install an on-prem Power BI server if you want to keep the information completely on-prem. And you could publish then to that. So I just want to mention those options. When you develop Power BI reports, you can also develop for the web view as well.
Right. And you can even start building reports directly in the Power BI service, the web version.
Yep.
Bill, I think you would also agree with me that we wouldn't really recommend that way, because truly, if you're developing, massaging the data, normalizing the data, modeling the data, you want to be in desktop first before getting into the Power BI.
But yeah,
but if
I guess
you experiment, feel free to use the app and do that. But really, for that true transformation, use the web version.
So I guess it's how sophisticated,
desktop
version. So it depends on how sophisticated your data sets are. If somebody's already developed your data sets, if you're in a large corporation and they may already have a bunch of data sets out there that you can connect to, then you can go right to Power BI Service, click New Report, connect to your data sets. But when there's no data out there, you don't already have stuff developed, you're starting fresh, you really have to go to Power BI Desktop to start your connections to get your data. But if you're coming into an existing team, there's already a lot of data sets out there, you may not have to go to Power BI Desktop. You may be able to use existing data sets.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And even though I'm a PC user, and so in case if there's any Mac users out there, is there a Mac version of the desktop?
No, I haven't found one yet.
Okay, I didn't think so. Yeah. So sorry, Mac users.
But I do the online, but yeah, I'll develop my PC, publish it, and then I'll do the editing. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I'm a PC person, so.
I'm both. All right.
What Windows Online's for?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So now I love how Microsoft really is behind crowdsourcing. Now, for any of the products outside of the Power Platform, Power BI, Power Apps, or Power Automate, the crowdsourcing platform that Microsoft used to really use was a third-party app called User Voice, right? They're moving away from User Voice, and a lot of the individual of those apps are eventually being brought in-house one by one. But when it comes to the Power Platform, especially Power BI crowdsourcing, it's actually referred to as ideas, was always on an internal server. And the link is there. The link is at the end. And I definitely recommend, just always checking back on Power BI ideas, especially if you do have a particular feature that you're wishing that Power BI did have. Go to the crowdsourcing. First, search for the idea that you're thinking of, because someone may have already posted it, and then vote on it, because that's how Microsoft tries to prioritize the development of these ideas.
Yep. And they're changing monthly. I mean, every month is a new download.
And one of the things I want to say is that with the completed ideas there, the very first one was something that was a feature that was posted as a suggestion and has already been rolled out, and that's the paginated reports being available for pro users, not just premium.
Right.
So they do listen.
Yep. Yeah, and this is there's something else called user voice. This is separate from user voice, crowdsourcing and voting it up. So, yeah.
Well, no, actually, Bill, user voice is going away because user voice was a third-party app, and Power BI was never on user voice. They always built the crowdsourcing platform internally.
Right. So I just want to make sure they look similar because you vote here. So I just want to make sure this is not going away. This is, come here to continue to look at ideas and submit ideas. Right. All right. So this is the Magic Quadrant. I downloaded this. So I get this from Gardner, and I have a link here. I'll put it in the chat. It's a great read. Power BI is still the leader when it comes to integration, the app, getting your data. So, I mean, other tools will probably be the leader in different categories, but I think because Power BI is on the Office 365 ecosystem and pulling all the data together, I believe that's why this is the leader. Any other thoughts you have, Chrissy, on why they have it out so far? Because I know a lot of other tools do just as well.
Well, I think it's just a matter of just like the integration and the really the variety of what you can do with Power BI versus the other sources. And remember when the Gartner reports with the Magic Quadrant, this is specific to the data visualization. And I also just want to point out now, this is the latest report in that particular sector. And it was from February of this year, February 2021. I believe it does come out annually. And the one for 2020 actually had just Microsoft just hovering over Tableau. So they were very close.
They were closer, another one. Yeah, I've seen that.
A year later, look at the gap. So basically, Microsoft has just shot out of the gate as the significant leader over Tableau. That my feeling on that is that I have a feeling that was also around. I think the impact of Tableau's acquisition by Salesforce may have been a factor there. That sometimes when companies like that get acquired, the development may perhaps stall. That it's not good anymore, but it could affect the whole evolution of it.
That's a good point. I mean, it's constantly changing. I mean, there's constant new features. I know it's been around for a while, but it really is a new product every 3-4 months. At least it feels like it should be in the last 4 or 5 months that I've been working with it. It's been changing so much.
Oh yeah, and it constantly changes, like almost everything with M365's EcoFear.
And I feel like I have to go back to reports every now and then and publish them. In the olden days, you just publish a report and leave it alone. But things keep changing so much that I want to update my gateways. I want to republish reports, and it's a different mindset than people are used to in the enterprise. That is, All right, and then Chrissy, you found this one.
Actually, it's I did find this one, but I also found the Gartner one too, because of the Gartner.
You did, yeah.
Incorporate that into the other session, but this one's actually more recent because this just came out in just last month in August, and of course it's not Gartner. It's coming from Forrester, and it's referring to the augmented BI platforms. So where pretty much both Microsoft and Oracle are the leaders, which I remember when I saw the postings a lot on LinkedIn about this, there was chitter-chatter of people wondering, saying, wait a second, why is Oracle out there? And people were forgetting about the Oracle products. Yeah. And then the TIPCO must be maybe the Spotfire, I guess, right? Doesn't Spotfire come from TIPCO?
I'm not familiar with that.
Oh, okay. It's more of a scientific evaluation for that one, but that's like going out wild. Yeah.
All right, so basically on this one, this is like, what is Power BI again? So do a quick review. You mainly use the desktop to connect to your data. Once you connect to your data, you want to then transform your data, clean it up. There's actually, when you click your data, it actually goes to transform data. It's its own separate app. And then that's where you're kind of working with your model, cleaning it up. You connect to your data, you transfer it, and then you create your visuals. Your visuals is what goes on your canvas, or that's where you bring in your charts and your graphs. And then all your collection of your visuals typically come from one data set, and typically they're on a report. They can be on one or more pages, but typically they all come from one data set, which we're going to explain data sets in a little bit. Chrissy, I like the DAX Studio you found. You found here a third-party tool that works with Power BI.
Right, exactly, because when you're modeling data in Power BI, to enhance those relationships and connect the dots per se, you're using a language called DAX, which stands for Data Expression Language, which is an open source tool, DAX Studio. So it's a separate tool, but being that when you're powering Power BI, you are using the DAX language. Along with, there's another language called M, which is also a separate language in itself. But you can use DAX Studio to build up your query, and there's even a space on the Power BI desktop ribbon where you could load in third-party tools that you could immediately launch from your Power BI desktop.
Nice. And this was actually a program I downloaded and it went into my Power BI reports and looked at the queries. So you can actually launch this tool from your desktop. Right. So I liked it. It was interesting. I'm still trying to play with it.
Kind of cool. Yep, exactly. I still have to get completely up to speed with it, but hey, life is always a matter of just constantly learning, because if you're not learning, you're not living. And just going back to the collection of visuals, not only is your the pages, the reports that you're building are the collection of visuals. When you're using Power BI Desktop and deciding how you're visualizing the data, you're not just limited to the built-in visuals that you're able to add in. There's actually something called the marketplace that you could add in additional visuals. Now, keep in mind that some of the visuals available on the marketplace may still be in development, which is okay. So they do tag them in terms of classifying it, whether or not they're certified. So it gives you more confidence that the visuals are going to work. Or even if they're not certified, if you're just playing around and test, still test it around, but just be aware that it may break.
No, I see the opportunities to grow the visuals, exponentially, because the framework is there, the HTML is there, everything's there. It's just somebody has to have the idea, like, oh, we can do this, and then everything's there to program. I mean, so and then here we're just showing you the options to get data. There's many more options than this, but you really work with Power BI, and I just want to show a few data, the most popular ones, and then you also click get data to get started. There's other options. So,
and the web source for Power BI, I'll just make mention because we'll make mention of it later on in the presentation. Mm-hmm. The web source is not always an HTML page. The web source could be an Excel file, but
we'll show that.
That later.
We'll show that in a little bit. So you're getting data, this is your visuals, like your pie chart. You really want to think about transforming your data, cleaning it up. So you want to get the work done. You want to try to clean your data up before you present the visuals. So this is just talking to that, what else do you think of before you clean up your story? Do you go in that with your clients, like just trying to?
Actually, sometimes I would let's say, what I like to call the backwards approach. First, discuss what is the story they're actually trying to tell. And it really has nothing to do with talking about the technical terms of anything with data visualization, business intelligence, or Power BI desktop. It's like tell the story of what do you want to do with it, what do you want to do with the data, and what sort of conversation that you're trying to do with your company, with your team, and how are people going to consume the data? Who are going to be the consumers? Because sometimes with talking about who the audience is going to be will impact how you build the data. Because again, it's hey, when it comes to data and its consumption, it's all about the audience.
Yep. And then you also want to think about building that data set to make it easier later, because other people, you can reuse data sets. So, just because you might have a narrow focus to get something done, if the data is already there and it's normalized, already aggregated, it isn't bad to have it in your data set if it helps tell other parts of the story so people can then connect to it and do their own visuals. So I try to think when I bring in data set, is it okay to bring this in? Is this, something identifying information I don't want to bring in? So I try to have a conversation about data sets, if it's related or the data is very close. Like, what's the harm including this? I don't need to show it on the visual, but I might throw it in the data set if it's not a lot of data.
Exactly.
I don't want to obviously overdo it, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. And also when it comes to the data sets, when you do bring it in, be conscious of the data labels. So it may if you go back to it or someone else is also collaborating with you, they'll be able to know what that data set is without really opening it up. It's almost similar like when coding and when adding in comments on the code. So it's who was the guy that wrote Code Complete? So it's
Steve McConnell.
What?
Steve McConnell.
Steve McConnell. Yeah. My husband's more of the coder there. But so it's a matter of being able to write code that whether you yourself that you go back to it years later or if someone else collaborates on it will know what that history is and where it's going through rather than it's just like a mismatch. Yeah. Okay. So this is now using Excel as a web source, and specifically when you have that Excel file on OneDrive or SharePoint, then once it's on OneDrive or SharePoint, then and you have to open up Excel in the app. You can't just open it up in the browser, whether it's on OneDrive or SharePoint. And you just go to the file menu, and you want to get that full path for that Excel file on OneDrive or SharePoint. So, and once you copy path, it's going to be in your clipboard. Okay, so now you go into Power BI, and rather than Get Excel Workbook, because the Get Excel Workbook only works with Excel as a flat file, not as a web source. So you want to make sure you do the web source, and then right in the URL field there, you're just going to paste in. Now, if you know, hopefully you're able to see it, I shaded everything from the question at the end of the link, including the question mark, red. You want to make sure that that piece it is removed. So you basically just backspace on it, delete it, because if you don't, it's not going to make the connection correctly. And then the last piece, you just want to make sure, especially if it's coming from a OneDrive or SharePoint, make sure that you have the proper credentials incorporated into that connection. So then that way it can always be refreshing properly. And once you connect, it just brings it in. You can actually just immediately load, or if you transform the data, as both Bill and I have been saying, it opens up the query editor, and you could actually do a quick review of the data. And keep in mind, you can always be toggling from the query editor and the transform data and everything as you make that massage of the data.
So I like this copy path. This is a new thing in SharePoint. You're seeing a lot of spots where it says copy path now. That's where you get a very simple URL. You don't get all the complexity, and it's Typically, you want a URL that redirects somebody to the file all the time, but sometimes you just need a very clean URL to get the data. So the path is different than a link. A link is more get somebody there, but a path is when you need to connect data or pull something.
Right.
So.
Well, think of the path as like, I guess that file explorer link.
Right. Yes, it's like when you were. Yep.
Yep.
Alrighty. So paths are important now, and then Power BI reports. So talking about a lot about Power BI and the visuals. I just want to throw some visuals here to show you. But these visuals, like you said, you can go to third party and download and get more. So it's going to be growing and ever changing. These are visuals inside our Power BI report. We're going to talk about dashboards a little bit later, how they're different. But typically, yeah, the visuals all come from that one report. Typically from that, you can only have one data set in a report. So all the things you decide to connect to are in that one report. And it's just different ways of viewing the data. So you can have multiple pages, multiple visuals, and it all could be on one simple data set. So instead of in Excel where you would filter, you could just have predefined visuals. Yeah. Chrissy?
Yeah, no, exactly, because when it's that evolution from the data into the Power BI report, and then once you're in the Power BI report, and think of the Power BI report as consisting of multiple pages. And there's a lot of tips and tricks that I always like to say when creating those reports is that when you're creating those multiple pages, it's always helpful to be mindful that you can actually rename the page label. And I typically like to rename it not only as a sequential pages, but a sequential page with a topic. And the reason why I like to do that is that when you do then publish the report to the Power BI service, so the web, those page labels almost become like a table of contents on the Power BI service. So it helps with that, again, the consumption for whomever is reading that Power BI report. And then with sharing and collaboration, remember, you could even just share it at the report level when you publish it to the Power BI service. You do not necessarily have to share it at the dashboard level. Of course, you could eventually develop that dashboard, but when it's in the report level, you can already be ready to have people collaborate on it.
So yeah, a report is the same thing if you're in Power BI Service or Power BI Desktop. You're trying to create a report. So it's this canvas, you're putting the information on the canvas. Doesn't matter if you're on the desktop or the dashboard. The dashboard is typically where people connect to see the reports. And the reports is what you use to pull into dashboards, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But everything has to start with the report. You're developing a report.
Yep. Yeah. And with the dashboard, the whole point of the dashboard is that it takes elements from the various segments of the reports, because you're really pinning a visual from the segments of the report into the dashboard. And that's how you're building the dashboard.
Right, and I just wanted to do, I found this slide from somebody else, so I stole it, but really just wanted to show the canvas. There's different views on the left there, where you can do, your canvas, you have your, kind of like it shows your data set, the second one, and then your model, which we're going to get into when we do a live presentation, and then your visuals and your filters. Yep, that's good.
And I always like to emphasize data source settings, because as you build your reports, and keep in mind, you can find data source settings at each of the segments in your Power BI desktop, whether you're in the report view, which that's what you look at in this screenshot, or if you're in the data view, which that's what the tabular section is on the left-hand side, or on the modeling view, and that looks like what looks like almost like a flow chart at the end. So whichever view that you're in, you're going to find data source settings in the ribbon, and it's typically on the home tab. And what I like about always reminding people to look for the data source settings, especially if you're having any particular issues with refresh, and for something that might be stuck or something like that. First, checking your data source settings is a good starting point to make sure that it's connecting to the data correctly, and especially if you have the proper permissions for the data sources that you're connecting to. Because sometimes it might be anonymous, or sometimes it may require a particular set of credentials. So
once you connect to something, you're like, how do I fix this? I want to log in again. Well, you have to go back to your settings. So they're hard to find. Some people will delete the model and re-bring in their data. Well, instead of doing that, just go to data source settings and
exactly. It's a lot. It's a lot quicker. Oh
yes.
yeah, exactly. And and you don't always have to open up the data transformer to find the data source settings, because of course each time you open that up, you always need to apply the changes, which can take a little longer. So you can just put the source settings right up, and it's a lot faster, and you don't have to rebuild stuff.
All right, so here I just want to talk about the flow again. You're working on your Power BI desktop. You see that on the left, and on the Power BI desktop, you connect to your data sources, your SQL, it could be online websites, and that Power BI desktop has a connection to that database or your cloud sites where you're getting the data from. The minute you click that Publish button, that's where it goes to your Power BI service. So that's where that computer in the middle there, that's the consumer pulling the information down. So once you publish, typically the end user will never see your Power BI desktop unless you're sharing with other developers. You're working together. You might put your Power BI desktop in a team site and you're editing it. It doesn't do a good job with co-editing, so I usually recommend one developer at a time work on Power BI desktop. But as soon as you get that data set and you get all that data and you can publish it, you all can then co-edit in Power BI service. So you really want to do what you need to do in Power BI desktop. When you're working in Power BI desktop, you have to have firewall connection to your data source. So I have to be on VPN. I have to make sure my VPN has firewall rules to the SQL databases, or my data gateway has to be there. So that's desktop. When you connect to the Power BI service, this is where if you're using cloud links and cloud data, you're fine. But if you're using any on-prem data, this is when you're going to need a Power BI gateway to be installed. I installed 2 in my organization, so I can get at Oracle databases, SQL databases. I just had to make sure my gateway had firewall access to those databases. I asked them to set up, logins for me so I can have a service account. I made sure that the account only had read access. I made sure that, the data was aggregated, or, they had to do some work there. So that's Power BI service. You're publishing Power BI desktop to the service. People are consuming the service. So I just thought this was a good slide to kind of show that, the end user going into the cloud.
Exactly, because that's where it's being consumed in the cloud.
Yep.
And then as you said, also the collaboration. Yeah, I myself don't work really much with the on-prem data, so I don't have the Power BI gateway. So yeah.
I do a lot with on-prem gateways and data refresh. So that's some of the nuances I've learned in the gotchas. All right.
Oh yeah.
Go to the
Now,
next slide.
I have a gotcha with seeing, when you're using Excel as a data source, and Excel through and as a web source, be conscious of if you're having any formulas within Excel, especially concat, because that will break your connection. So if you have built anything in Excel that actually you've combined a couple of columns together, and you left the concact formula in there, Power BI will read the formula literally. It will not take the resulting answer. So something like that, you would want then to create an additional column that would just have the end result of that formula. So.
Yeah, you might want to do that work in Power BI. Do your own calculation when you transform data. So Power BI service, kind of talked about everything. Once you're in the service, it's your online version of Power BI. There's your report that's in there. You have your data set, your dashboards. Dashboards are typically pulling things off of a report. You can have many different reports from different Power BIs that you've done and bring them all into one dashboard. So that's where you kind of dashboarding and join different things. Now, workspace, we're going to go into some of the technical terminology now on behind the scenes, behind the curtain, what goes on. Workspace is one of these places where when you publish, you're publishing it to what's called a workspace. And you can create workspaces. You can also use an existing Microsoft Teams site as a workspace, depending on how your tenant is configured.
Right.
And then on those workspaces, people need to have typically a Power BI Pro license to consume the data, or in my organization, it's a large enterprise organization, we actually purchase a premium capacitor, like a P1 capacitor. So all the users viewing our reports do not require a Power BI license at all. Right. And they can see live reports that have data sets that refresh.
And now, Bill, remember when it comes to with the premium capacity workspaces, there's actually another option that you can set the workspace to PPU, premium per user capacitor, which is not as expensive as the premium. So the PPU, it's at the per user level, and you could you can actually set a workspace at that level. So for those organizations that may not really be even afford, or may not even be necessary to actually have purchase the premium capacity, because I believe that's at, well, I think the industry level is at, it's almost like $5,000, I believe. I think
something like that, yeah. And then the one I'm on, I think that's around 40 up, something like that. So they can go up to 40, 80,000, a year for these high-end capacitors. And the low ends can be more affordable. We have some more details on that towards the end.
Yeah. Whereas the PPU, I believe, since it's at the per user level, it's $20 per user. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yep. Cool. And so workspaces, this is, just a copy of my workspaces. When I publish, I have the option to select a workspace. So all the workspaces that you have access to will show up when you click the publish button. Typically, a lot of people work out of their own personal workspace. So you have my workspace, similar to your OneDrive. You have your personal OneDrive where you just do your personal work. And then when you have that shared space, your SharePoint site where you collaborate. So same thing on Power BI. Is this report just for me? I'll put it in my workspace. If it's a group report, I'll ask to have a workspace created. Now, in my enterprise organization, nobody can create a workspace. They have to use an existing Microsoft Teams site, or they have to be given permission to create a workspace. So I'm one of the lucky few that can actually click create workspace, but typically somebody has to put a ticket into a central IT and ask for a workspace, or be an owner, or a participant in a Microsoft Teams site. Workspace is just a name for where you're publishing this report to. Go ahead.
And just a clarification, and when Bill is actually saying team site in terms of the workspace, it's really that workspace is connected to an M365 group. So that is how it's generated. So if the workspace has an M365 group, that workspace will pop up in your list. And of course, on my tenant, I could create my own workspace as well. And anytime you do see that diamond is what is indicative that it's a premium workspace, whether it's premium workspace or premium per user workspace.
Right. And so that means end users can come in without a license. They come in with that license you apply to the workspace. Let's put it that way. Yep. So my workspace, Once you have a workspace, you can actually click new and you can create a report. If there's already data set out there, like we talked about, if your organization is sophisticated and there's already stuff there, you may not even need Power BI Desktop. You just click new report and you pull off of somebody else's data. So that's a great way to get started. There's already a data set that's been shared with you. You can just start playing with the online service. Okay. Oh,
yes, and this integration between Power BI and MS Teams is relatively new.
Yep.
And do have a live demo on this, but even if when you go to your Power BI service, the app.powerbi.com. Wait, now I can't remember the full URL. But
so I always recommend to go to the Waffle because I'm in a GCC tenant, and people looked at the links and try going to. I said, just go to the Waffle, log into portal.office.com, click on the Waffle, and go to Power BI because us in the government tenant have a different URL than people in the business tenant.
That's true. And the reason why I just mentioned that is that now, since Microsoft is really pushing out that integration between Power BI and Teams, so you'll see that banner when you're in the Power BI service. But of course, from Teams, if you just click on that ellipsis in the left bar there, that'll pull up the apps that you could pin to the bar. And one of them is the Power BI. I've pinned my Power BI in there. And as you can tell, that actually mimics the Power BI service on the web. Now, you can't do everything that you do on the web in the Power BI app in Teams, but it allows for that extended collaboration when you have it in Teams.
I love the integration. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and speaking of integration, of course, going back to Excel, because I'm sure there's many people that even started out maybe even just loving Excel and even doing their initial data viz in Excel with Power Query, pivot tables, and everything like that. When you're in Power BI service, you can take a report or a data set, not a dashboard, and you can analyze in Excel. So I've done the screenshot there that it's just a matter of from either the report view or the data view, select that ellipsis again, and just select Analyze Excel. Now, if you haven't done it already, Analyze Excel actually is associated with a separate installation, which you could even beforehand download that from your Power BI service menu, and so you could even download it there. Now, for those, if you do want to analyze a data set or a report in Excel from the Power BI service, keep in mind you do need to be a pro user or a premium user. A free user, you're not able to analyze in Excel this way.
All right, so just to reiterate, to compare Power BI Desktop, Power BI Service, there's nuances and differences, what you can do in both. I like this diagram to kind of show the desktop to the service. Again, the desktop's more that developer trying to get everything working, get it started. There's role level security, RLS creation. So in my organization, I had we had this application that moved data from all of our clients. It was like an FTP file move, and they had this huge data set, and they wanted the customers to see when their data moved. So I brought it all to Power BI, and I did role level security. So what I did was I created in SharePoint, I created a list in SharePoint, like by URL, and then I did it by group and by people. And so I created these 3 lists in a SharePoint site, related them, and then in Power BI, I brought that in and I did role level security. So when people went to Power BI, so what I did was I gave people access to a report, and then I did a filter looking up the user identity from a SharePoint list to only show them the rows they had access to. So you need Power BI Desktop for more advanced security.
Yeah.
So row level security is a great one that I've been playing with lately. I had this whole report all up and running in Power BI service, and then it's that they wanted to add row level security. So I went back to my report, found it, added the filters. It was very easy, created some SharePoint lists, republished it, and boom, I had security. And then we opened up to a wider audience. So there's a lot you can do. And you have to get row level security started in Power BI desktop, and then Power BI service, the data connections then move. But you cannot start it in Power BI service.
Right.
So that's one of those things, even though it's on this chart in both places, it cannot start there.
Now, actually, Bill, that was actually really cool. Now, have you actually started applying sensitivity labels, which that's something that's been really recently rolled into Power BI?
No, I haven't, because you also have them for SharePoint sites and,
Right.
There's some governance there, and I'd love to see how that works in a large enterprise. I think in a smaller company, it's great to kind of get your hands around it. I think in a larger enterprise, there's a bigger talk there. How do you be consistent across everybody using your Office 365?
Yeah, exactly. Like there's definitely a trickle down.
Yeah. Or a bottom up typically. I know a lot of time it's like, ground up trying to get these initiatives started and moving. And you also need that top down approach for governance. So, yeah.
And this Venn diagram actually does come from Microsoft. It's right from the MS documentation, which that link on the slide links to.
Yep.
Okay. Now, of course, Power BI integrates with a bunch of other apps, including even Power Apps as well. But so if we list it all, this could last really all night. But again, when it comes to automation, Power BI, yes, you can leverage it with Power Automate and create a custom flow. Or if you're first getting started, start off with the templates.
Yeah.
And then just build from there, because sometimes the templates might be the best starting point, even if you're already a well-developed flow developer. Good, I'm speaking well. You could start off with a template and then just from that template customize it based on your needs. Yeah.
Yep. All right, so data sets. So I think we talked about this a lot. I think the important thing about Power BI data sets is you can start a Power BI report with somebody else's data set. So just like we said, you go to the Power BI service, you can click new report, pick somebody's data set. Also from the desktop, you can reuse somebody's data set. So don't be afraid of that. Live connections is something new. Microsoft, if your Azure is sophisticated, it might be live data out there that you can connect to. I do a lot with data gateways, so I wanted to do this chart at the bottom just to kind of remind people of data gateways. And it looks like you can connect to Tableau now. And
I think I've heard that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is actually kind of cool. And speaking of the Power BI data sets, you're not even limited to analyze that from within Power BI desktop. You could actually analyze a Power BI data set in Excel from the data tab.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I haven't
tried that yet.
Yeah, I haven't tried it, but I know it's there. So basically, that get data menu that you see in Power BI desktop is in Excel.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's as the maturity level of the organization rises. I mean, as there's more artifacts out there to connect to, you'll find, there's already data there. Let me just do it from my Excel. So you don't need to be that sophisticated. You can just take. This is pretty much what a data set looks like. So once you bring data in, you get data, you view and you look at the data and you clean it up. So I try to make sure the data is sorted in the right order. I try to make the columns look good. So I try to make it look good for me as the developer. So then when I go to the report, I don't have to do a lot of work. Once you have a data set, you can copy that data set and tweak it. And you're not making a copy of it. You're just making another visualization on the data set. So don't be afraid when you're modeling data to copy data, because you can even just copy based on the existing data. I mean, there's like a whole way of making a complete duplicate, and there's another way of just making another model off of it. I forget what it's called. But then you can just change the filters and tweak things. So anyways, try to clean your data set up. This is what it looks like. We'll go into this when we do a demo, I think, if we have time,
Yeah, and the cleaning is good. The normalization of the data is good. So then that way, when you're putting the pieces together with the model, it just immediately flows in terms of creating that report.
Did I do the slide or you do the slide?
I think you did the slide. I didn't do
okay.
Yeah. Because I don't remember.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I was just showing, report. This is, when you go to view it right from the waffle, people click on Power BI. If you open in reports up, people can see it. I found in the Commonwealth that the snow and, ice and snow report. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I can see how much ice and how much salt they're buying. And so, people can have, reports open to the whole tennis. You might just want to be careful of it. Might have other users take a look at the Power BI waffle, see what reports are open. So just be conscious of that if you need to have some reports open or close. Yep. And this is getting to dashboards now. So dashboards typically, as we referred to once or twice, is you're taking something off of a report page, one or more elements, and you're bringing it to a dashboard. There's nuances between a report and a dashboard, which we're going to show in a second. Dashboard is just another page in the Power BI service, but you're not on the report itself. You're not on any single report. You're just on a like an iframe. Like if you do an HTML page, you have many iframes, but web parts on a SharePoint page, you put many web parts. So just think of it as that blank canvas, that blank page, and you're bringing in parts of reports, and that's a dashboard.
And just to echo back to the video that started it all when when Project Crescent was basically born, the dashboard is really that storyboard. That's where you're putting the pieces of the story. And I don't know if there's anyone out there, I guess, in the advertising world, because I believe that's where that storyboard came from. That you're taking those, like, really either those 3x5 cards and literally putting them up on, and you're moving them around and creating that story. So whomever that your audience is consuming that data into knowledge.
Right. So it's kind of funny how they started as a dashboard, and then things got more and more complex with reports, and now we're back to dashboard. Now, a lot of people, I think, overlook dashboards. Dashboards are a great opportunity to just simplify and give people the data. Reports are great for interactivity. We want to click on a filter, move around. Dashboard's great just to show somebody, like an executive or a manager, if they don't need to filter. So I try to find out people's requirements. Do you need to interact with the data, or you just need to see it? If somebody just needs to see the data, I like to create a dashboard for them. Because I just want to try to simplify whenever I can the information. And usually a manager or an executive wants to get a bunch of information at once. And if they're not interacting, great, I'm going to make you a dashboard. For that sub-manager or somebody that really wants to dig through, well, you shouldn't go to the dashboard. You can go to the dashboard, but then click on this object and it'll bring you to the report. So they want to be on the report.
Right.
And great segue right to the slide. The difference between the dashboard and reports. On a dashboard, you cannot filter or use your slicers. But the nice thing about a dashboard is it can email you when it changes.
Yeah.
Which, right, is that in here? I think that's in here.
Yeah.
Set alerts. You can create an alert to email you.
Yeah.
Which you cannot do on a report. So
right.
Dashboards have a great use, especially for that executive,
Right, exactly. Or if it's something that you want to just, if the audience is that entire organization or team, and if it's really the Cliff Note version of the data, or the Co's Notes for any Canadians out there. So so they both serve that purpose, and they don't really compete against each other. It's again who the audience is, and what you're trying to convey, and how what level of interaction your audience is going to have.
Yep. So this is the flow of activity. I just want to reiterate, bring your data into Power BI, create a report, you're publishing it to the PBI service, and then you're working on those visuals, and then sharing usually typically from Power BI service. There's many ways of sharing. You can get embed links. You can do public sharing from Power BI, where you completely open it up and it's anonymous. Nobody needs to log in. A little scary. I still want to figure out how to write a report to see all the people open up reports.
If you're publishing any confidential data, especially like financial activity, I wouldn't open it up to the public.
Yeah, I think people get frustrated. There's many ways of embedding, which is more complicated, but that's where the premium capacitor, the M or the capacitors come in, the licenses coming in. A SharePoint embed only works for internal members of a tenant. If you have guest users, you have to give them that Power BI link. They cannot see it embedded on a SharePoint page. So that's unfortunate that an intranet with Power BI reports cannot be viewed by guest users, but that's a current restriction right now with Power BI. But this is the flow activity. So, and then I found a nice, and this is paginated reports. I think you've done some work with paginated reports, right?
A little bit. I'm just starting to get into it. I haven't really built anything yet. But for anyone that now again, when it comes to paginated reports, you at least have to be have a pro license. You can't just be on the free version of Power BI. You have to have at least a pro license. And in order to build reports, the data needs to be on a workspace that is of some level of premium capacity. So that is the restriction with there. When it comes to the report builder, again, just the way that Analyze in Excel is a separate app that you download, the report builder is also a separate app that you can also download it from the Power BI service when you just click on that ellipsis, and there's a download section where you actually put it in. I did include that link that it actually does come from Microsoft, and it's an on-demand type of course. So if anyone that is just starting to get into paginated reports and you're at least a pro user, there is a reports in a day course that you can actually just take at any time, and made links in the slide deck. Yeah.
Nice.
So.
All right. Premium capacity we talked about, some licensing. So, on your workspace, you add the capacitor to it. That's the one with the diamond we saw on the side. In my enterprise, there was a couple of options. We're using the P1, but there's also the EM1. Those are, I think, the cheaper ones, EM1, EM2. So really, it goes by the size of the Power BI file, how many gigs it can be, which determines your data set size. Because it has to bring, when it connects to the data, it has to bring everything into a cube. So everything's in memory in a cube. And that's why you can take this data and view it many different ways. You can copy your data set.
So, and here is the premium per user, which again, that rolled out for general availability just in the spring of this year. So the link is in the slide deck there. That is actually my tenant that you can actually a Power BI administrator does actually have to enable for that workspace to be upgraded to a particular premium per se. Now, since I don't have premium capacity, of course, that is grayed out with any of my workspaces, but premium per user is an option for me. So again, when I remember seeing that announcement in the spring, I got so excited. So it's like, yes, there is at least an in-between for those of us with environments that don't have the premium capacity. So, which is always a nice one. So let's go through here. Again, this chart rolls out the difference between Pro, the premium capacity, and the PPU. And just a side note, this table, I actually created it in Power BI because this table came from the Microsoft Power BI pricing plan that has a table. And when you have you can use a web source. You could actually use a web source that has tabular data in that web source, and Power BI will extract that data and I immediately created that data. In fact, if you want, we could show that as a demo.
Yep.
Yeah. Desktop for Pro. We could just go really quick, right?
Yep. And the admin portal, this is just real quick. You know, my admin portal is very limited because I only have access to the premium capacitor, but in your tenant, you may have different levels of access.
I have the whole thing.
Yep. This is where you can also download Power BI Desktop, Gateway. So everybody should have, who has some type of license, have access to admin portal. It'll just be limited to what they have access to. But this is where they would download their software. Oh, it's another option. Okay.
Here's my tenant with the admin portal. That another option is that I'm all big in terms of branding. That when it comes to your Power BI service, if you're a Power BI administrator with the full level, you can actually brand your Power BI service. Like I've added a cover image and my own company's logo and so forth. And you could even do custom colors and things of that nature. And of course, your M365 administrator can assign you as a Power BI administrator.
Can you go back one slide? So you can also, when you do these data sets, you might want to think about, do you want to have these data sets available across workspaces? Or do you want to set up a security group that only certain people can publish data across workspaces? So there's some governance that you could do as your organization gets larger, or if you're concerned about the data sets. So I just want to mention that's in there. It's more of an advanced feature, but it's good to know about.
Exactly, it is good. But there's a lot of stuff within the portal that, especially if you're a Power BI developer within your organization, and if you're not already a Power BI administrator, definitely advocate for that, because this is where you're able to really customize how the data is consumed throughout your organization.
Yeah, and there's a lot of security controls there that I think just you need to have an admin every day watching for these new features to pop up and to get behind them and to know your groups and your audience. So this is, I have this text here and I'll put in the chat. So what I do is when I'm working with data sets, so we work a lot with gateways in the state, and we publish a lot of reports that refresh constantly throughout the day. And so one of the biggest issues is all the time is in e.t.c time, like Greenwich Mean Time. And so I created just a table that just I get the time and date now, and then I do an offset for Eastern Time -4.
I think we're going to have to cut short some of these demos, guys. We're way short on time.
All right, so let's, so.
Do people want to see how to pull in?
So let me share here. I got a demo all set. And
I stopped sharing.
All right, so here's Power BI. I just want to show you real quick. Come on. Yeah, it has to open up. There it goes. Okay. So go to a table. So, and can I make this bigger? No. So here I have the refresh. This is the e.t.c time, Greenwich Mean Time. And here I did an offset. Let me go to data transformation. And then advanced editing. So the text I just put in the chat, if you click on, a new table, let me show you from scratch. If you get blank data, if you just go and get, blank query, and then when you click blank query, if you just click on this advanced editing feature and paste in the text I put in the chat, you'll actually get this table. And so what I'm doing over here is I'm getting date, time, local now, and then I'm adding a column that then is doing a date offset. Let me just go and publish this. So I'm going to just publish this to the tenant. Oops, I had to close that. And just publish it. And this is your workspaces. I'm going to publish it and then replace it. And let me open up the data set and show you. All right. So here's the data set. and here's the report. So when I click on the report, you're going to see it doesn't quite look right. It has the time in Greenwich Mean Time. Typically, when you publish reports that refresh all the time, the first time you publish them, you have to click this refresh to refresh the report. You have to do that once, typically after you've published, especially when you're working on a lot of complex data sets and data gateways. Now, if I click on this report, I'll see it says 8:13, okay? And I adjusted this for Greenwich Mean Time. So over here, this is the current time right now, and then I had to do that offset to get the current time. So this is something is one of the most requested features when you're dealing with data that refreshes. People want to know the last time the data was updated. So I just want to show this to you. The minute you bring in data, I'm going to show you how to bring data in now. So let's get like.
I've got a quick question for you about that,
Yeah.
Bill.
Go ahead.
Is that only set to a static calculation that you have set, or is there a way to tie that so it can go off of whatever time zone the computer is on that is looking at that?
Great question. I haven't found any time zones in Power BI yet. Power BI itself uses Greenwich Mean Time and yeah.
But there's no way to get it to read what the offset is on the local device?
Yeah, no. All right. No,
Okay.
I haven't found a way. So here's some ski areas. Someone's going to take this URL here. I'm just going to come and get data. Let me close that down. Did I close that? And then I'm going to go get data. And I'm going to show you what happens as data refresh when I redo it. So I'm going to get data. I'm going to get web, other. I'm going to go down to web. Where's web? All.
Actually, you could search. Just search web.
There we go. So here's web. Connect. And the minute you connect to live data, it's going to go analyze the site, take a look at it. It's going to show you different tables. You can click on a table and like, no, not that. And so you want to find the table that had everything in it. There we go. There's the table, so I can check that off. And then down here, you can either load or transform. It's always recommended transform so you can review the data or clean it up. So I'll click the transform button. And this is very similar to Excel when you go and get data in Excel. So you don't need to start with Power BI right now. You can just do Excel and get your data. So here's the data. You can change the order of columns. Go ahead.
And actually, Bill, and this is an excellent example, because if you notice the way that it took the data, the headers aren't really headers in the transformer, but you can immediately make that very first row headers. So if you actually go into the ribbon and say use first row as headers, don't.
Okay.
Do it. Yeah, no.
There's many options, yeah.
Actually, up in the ribbon, it says use first row as headers. Nope.
I made a change here, so I'm going to get rid of this change I made. And then I'll go up in here in the ribbon. And where does it say that?
Right there, under data type, And it will automatically take what your first row is and make it as a header.
And then it added a step down here. And then I can just double click on this, and I can just say, I can rename this, and I can just say, make first row as headers. I know what that step was, so it makes steps. And I can just click. And then when you do something, you have to kind of click back. If I'm changing these things to date or time or something, I will make sure I click back on a step that I did it already, and then I just keep adding to that step. I don't like to have multiple steps that change something from date to number to etc. So as you start learning this, you'll understand what's going on here.
And
all right, so real quick.
Oh, sorry. A very common. Actually, Bill, before you close it, a thing to always remember is that when you're bringing it in, the label is a table 1, right?
Yep.
And that because it's taking it from how it was extracted from the web. Now that's a very generic label. So what you can do, not from these steps on the over in your left navigation there, you just right click on table, and it allows you to rename it to something more meaningful. So then that way, when you do bring it into the report view
Yep.
in the desktop, it's going to show that label, and it makes it easier to know. It's like, oh yeah, so that's that data set. So
All right, I'm just going to publish this real again, just to show you some of the nuances. Apply changes, and then I'm just going to put a table down here and click on my ski area, and just, I'm not going to, for time, I'm not going to play with it yet. So here, real quick, here's some ski areas, but I did it in the completely wrong order.
Yep. No, it's okay. And actually, Bill, why don't you also make the table a little prettier quickly by going into the paintbrush?
Yeah, so the paintbrush. Yep.
And then, yep, under styles. Yep. And if you click there, there's one that says header with flashy rows. So, you know, it's like it's a quick way to actually brand and customize each of your segments of your Power BI report.
All right, so I'm going to show you this. I'm publishing this again to the workspace, and then I'm going to replace it online. And then, yeah, I'm just going to show you this real quick. And got it. So let's go back to the web page. I'm going to refresh this web page. And you see the data here, but you see the time went off. The time is now gone back to Greenwich Mean Time. So what happened there? So let me show you that. So on the data set, like as I mentioned, whenever you publish, it's always good to come and do a refresh here to see what's going on. So when you do a refresh, it's going to throw an exclamation point because it doesn't have a data gateway. So a lot of times when you want data to refresh, you really have to have a data gateway. So let me show you what's, so there was an error with your data set, the warning icon to view the details. If you click on the warning, something went wrong, you know, so data refresh is disabled because at least one data source is missing credentials. Okay, so credentials. So let's come in here and go to settings. And we want to go to credentials. So gateway connections, you don't have a data gateway, okay? Big issue. And then credentials is down here, it's grayed out because you don't have a data gateway. So you need that data gateway appliance in your environment to save the credentials, even though this was a web source, right? And it's anonymous. So I don't know why it needs a data gateway for something that's anonymous, but the Power BI service wants to have that server there. So I just want to mention that to you. The minute it doesn't work, you can see I did have that date working because there was no dependency on a data set. But the minute I'm connecting live data. So if you're working with some of these services, maybe you want to embed your data. So you want to be conscious of, do you have a gateway or not? Am I using live data? And you might just bring the data into Power BI. So just be careful of it. Always do QA testing with end users. See if they can view and see the data. Okay. And that's my presentation. That was a little fast, but.
Makes sense. You need a data gateway because without a data gateway, you don't have a time zone.
Right, exactly.
Time
That
zone
does
in the
make
cloud.
sense.
Yeah, and there is no time zone features that I found. I need to get with Microsoft, and you know, I would love to see the end user be able to set their time zone, and I would love to be able to say these dates are in e.t.c. or these dates are accurate for my area. You know, and there's no way of doing it. You have to actually do a calculation. Now, if you set if you do that changing time date that I pasted in the message board, you can no longer calculate dates that you've done in time offset to. So you have to get your data, do all your date and time calculations, and then the last step, you might want to then do the time zone settings. So you really want to stack the order you do things correctly. But I found, like, yeah, the minute I change the time zone, I can't do calculations. So there's a lot of nuances still. Yeah, go back to that one, yeah. And then we'll go right, yeah, go ahead.
Oh,
Gonna show it real quick.
I was going to the end one.
Yeah, let's go that real quick. This was a custom dashboard that we just pulled the back-end data. You had to be on the network to see this report, and nobody used it. So go to the next slide. Yep.
Wait, oh, sorry. I was putting it in presentation mode.
So again, very proprietary, hype in the land. I recreated it in Power BI to give, you know, wider audience access and security trimmed. And the other dashboard, you had to change the filters to see how many were online, offline. Now it's just calculated right there. So you can just skip through these next slides.
And Bill, I actually, when you shared with me this case study, I love this because it was something that it would have been too costly for you to actually bring in from the third party. And this was an example where you could rebuild it using Power BI. So it's like that type of use case is golden. Yeah.
Yeah, I had access to the SQL data, and I could bring it to my intranet. Yeah, so it worked out really well. And this was just some examples I was going to talk about later, how to do the data sets, but we can skip over these and skip over those, and then and this is what a model looks like. Real quick here, I just want to show you, I copied the data. Like in the bottom right-hand corner, there's terminal status audit, and then this above that, there's terminal status audit max. Those are all copy of the same data set with just different filters applied. So I had to clean my data up. Even though it was copied, it's not taking up any more room in Power BI data model. My size of my Power BI didn't go up at all because the data was already in the cube. So don't be afraid of copying these your model. Okay, and that's all I wanted to share. And this is real quick complexity levels. In your organization, don't be afraid to get started, but know where you're at in your maturity level. Are you unorganized data? You're all just getting data started. This is a great chart just to show the executive team how you're growing over time. So it's something to come back and look at every year or 2 years, and then kind of tell them what the artifacts and assets that you're working with on Power BI and where you're at. So I think it's always good for an agency to know how they're developing.
And this is something that could even be built into a mind map or even a Visio for that matter to actually make it interactive and then more collaborative as you go from level to level with the BI maturity.
So be cautious of that, and stay in your space. If somebody wants you to be way out here, say, well, we got to get a consultant for that. We're still at this unorganized maturity level, this operational report level. So just be mindful where you're at. I mean, unless you want to dive in deep, but if your time and resources are constrained, you might want to. This is a good chart to help you. Okay.
And and again, this is just like a quick recap of some like minor points or maybe minor gotchas to actually remember that when it comes to Excel, you can use it as a flat file that you imported as to Excel, or you can use Excel as a web source if it's sitting in OneDrive or SharePoint. And when
we'll have these Power BIs on our site when I upload the video, so we'll have them up there. So.
Yep. And then for those that are working in Power BI already, and you may not already be, and you're not, and you may not think that you're using DAX, but even if you're applying those quick measures on your reports, believe it or not, you're using DAX because that code is DAX. So if you didn't think of yourself as a DAX coder, but you're doing measures, you are. So anyone really can get into it too. So and then this is just a recap of some of the key resources and links throughout the slide. The very first one is the YouTube video that we played, and a couple of other handy links that you could actually leverage. Now, there is a community link there that does link specific Power BI user groups. But, of course, it's not extensive because, hey, we're talking about Power BI, and this is the Boston 365 user group. So there's going to be Power BI sessions in just regular user group meetings. But that community link there just is specific to user groups that are branded Power BI. And the other thing that if you haven't already explored, I definitely recommend looking into the gallery, especially if you just want to try and or even just get inspiration. There's a whole bunch of collection of reports and dashboards in the gallery curation there.
Okay. Yep.
And I put in a couple of data sources, especially from the World Health Organization. There's even the data sets from WHO that you could leverage and play around with. A couple of other data sources, open data sources that you can use. But the WHO dashboard, they have built that in Power BI. So
Yep, I've used that. Yeah.
And I've put there's a whole bunch of other people within the community, because when it comes to the M365, there's key folks in the community. But probably the ones that at least come to mind immediately are Patrick and Adam. Those are the guys in the cube. And Jason and John for Bifocal. And for those that are podcaster, they also have the equivalent podcasts of their shows, and they're all active on Twitter. 2 key events coming up, one in November and then one in March. And the one in November still has call for speakers. So feel free to put your hat in the ring.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions for Chrissy and Bill?
Feel free to unmute yourself or use the chat. I've been putting links, so I think a lot of people have been going off looking at the links maybe, All
right. So I just wanted to go through some quick upcoming community events. Okay. This is the newly updated schedule for all of Microsoft's community calls. I can't stress enough to you guys how incredibly valuable these calls are. They're really awesome. Great place to get inspiration, to get updates on things that are coming in. And, unlike us who are kind of guessing at the interpretation of these things, a lot of these calls include developing members of the product teams. So you can get some straight up access from them. And some of them will actually ask you right back, what do you guys want us to focus on? I've been in a couple of these where they've said, these are some of the directions we're thinking about. Where would you guys like us to go? And it's a really great environment. And every now and again, if you hang out afterwards, you can maybe get some really nice tech support.
Yep. Some start early and they end abruptly on time. So it depends on the event.
It totally depends. And it even depends on how those presenters are doing that particular day.
Yep.
I
found going early helps sometimes. So I do both. I go early, I hang around.
I agree. It's great. Good stuff. So that's from Microsoft Direct. Here is a list of some of the upcoming events. These are kind of one and done events. We've got Collab Days New England. That's actually local here to Massachusetts. It's going to be in Burlington.
Oh, actually, Mike, that's been rescheduled.
It was canceled.
That's rescheduled because they really wanted to do it as an on-site, and being that Microsoft has not opened up their buildings yet, so it's been rescheduled, and the new date has yet to be established.
Oh,
Julie Turner posted that a couple days ago that it's been canceled.
Well, rescheduled. They are planning on rescheduling it.
All right. So to be determined. All right. Thank you for that update, guys. I appreciate it. I was not aware of that.
Oh, and the video company that Microsoft acquired is Clipchamp.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and I put in for the video editor too.
Okay, cool.
I just put that link in.
So there's also, so apparently there is not Collab Days, but there will be Microsoft 365 Collaboration Conference, as far as I know. That'll be December 7th through 9th in Vegas, Nevada. And also the Power BI Summit, which is one of the Power BI events that Chrissy had just mentioned, they too are actually just opened the call to speakers just a few days ago. So if you're interested in doing a presentation there, now's the time to reach out to them. Otherwise, if you're interested in attending, give it a few weeks and they'll have registration open in a few weeks.
Or the Power BI Fest, which is coming up in November, and that's
Right.
just the link in my slide there. That registration is already open, and the call for speakers for that one is still open. So.
Right. Yep. Okay. Are we missing anything? Anybody else know of any other events that are happening locally that haven't been canceled? No? Okay.
There's Ignite.
What's that?
Ignite's coming up next month.
Oh, Ignite, right.
Is that going to be virtual?
Yeah, it just they just
I
opened for
assumed so.
registration a few days ago.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
in November, right?
When is that, Rachel?
Let me look at my calendar. Hold on.
Okay. So yeah, Microsoft Ignite coming soon.
In a couple weeks.
All right. Wow. We also have some AMAs that are coming up. These are Ask Me Anythings. So these are formats that are basically opened up where you get the chance to pick the brains of the Microsoft folks that are working on some of these specific products and get some, see if they can figure out what issues you're running into, or maybe in the future develop a way to not have that issue. So these are also wonderful events. Highly recommend them. The first one is about the Power Platform. I wanted to speak to this a little bit. The Power Platform development and samples. I don't know if you guys are aware, but Microsoft has actually released a bunch of sample products that can be downloaded or at least browsed. Think of this as like a lookbook for Microsoft Power Platform. So they've got Power Apps in there. They've got lots of flows. There's some Power BI components, all kinds of fun stuff that you can look at for inspiration, or download it and say, how the heck did they do that, and reverse engineer it. So, which, I mean, you know, let's face it, that's how we all figured that out, right?
Yeah.
And there's also a list formatting AMA that is also coming up. Right now, both of these links were originally just links to forms, Microsoft Forms, and so I made a shortened list for these. So don't be fooled by the URL shortener. These are Microsoft events and not Boss 365 events. I just shortened the URLs for you guys using our shortener. Okay. And then we have some other reoccurring events in the community, and that would be the Women in IT Pros, Power Addicts, the Power Hour, and it goes on and on and on. I'm actually thinking of potentially doing a page that we maybe have on our user group that maybe just lists out all of these things, because I feel bad leaving out some of the stuff out there. The community is so huge and there's such wonderful information and advice out there. You know, I want to kind of include it all, but it's,
And Mike,
we run into logistical issues.
besides Women of IT Pros, there's also Power BI for Women as well.
Ah, there you go. I was unaware of that one. Okay. I have also just launched a poll for you guys about what topics you would like to see next. And it does say what topic should we tackle next, but I did leave that open so you can select multiple if you would like if you like multiples of those. So please vote. Let us know what you want to see. Like I said, we will, if we don't know somebody directly, we will find somebody. Between the three of us, we have a very deep reach into Microsoft resources and various experts. So please go ahead and vote. And in the meantime, I'm going to run through some of our sister user groups here, like the Rhode Island SharePoint user group, which meets on the first Tuesday of every month. You can check out their meetup page. And the Hartford Office 365 user group, which meets either the last Wednesday or Thursday of every month. And you can reach them on their meetup page. And the Granite State Pug, which may or may not still exist. So you can check their meetup page to see if they have any active meetings coming up.
Todd, have you heard of any updates from them?
I haven't, not recently, but I'm still not sure. I'm with Mike. I'm not sure on that either.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't looked into this myself, but last month when I brought this up, somebody pointed out to me that this may not be still running. So there are also sporadically meetups for Boston Azure group and the Power BI user group of Boston. All right. So now the open Q&A. Any tips or tricks people have run into or would like to get people's advice on, or wonderful gems that maybe you discovered that you'd love to share with people?
Has anyone got any experience with Starting Point? It's typically used by biotech companies, by regulatory departments to prepare content for FDA filings.
Actually, Deb, I have a client that does use Starting Point templates. It's actually an Accenture product.
Yes, it is. So we've had a ton of issues, in part because it was not necessarily loaded up correctly on people's computers. And so there's a template that comes with it called author template, which is the template for all of the other templates. But because it wasn't set up properly, when they used the other templates, they didn't get the author tab in Word. And so they just created all their content off of the author template, which meant anytime you updated Starting Point, none of their documents were ever upgraded to the latest version of Starting Point. Plus, Starting Point does not work and play well with the online version of Word. It only works with the app version. So if you've got anybody on a Mac or without the appropriate license, it crashes. And while we're at it, if you have any tables out of margins, if you have any images out of margins, it crashes. So I was wondering if anybody had a client using any other product other than Starting Point instead of Starting Point.
I have clients that don't use Starting Point, sure.
I meant you were doing regulatory filings.
Actually,
well, now you're getting picky.
Now,
you're a little more specific.
I have one client that does use Starting Point and had encountered issues, and it was because originally the templates weren't set up properly. But what they've done is that they've actually gone back to the starting board and rebuilt all those templates and pushed out a more universal template across all authors. And what they've also done is that, yes, like with any of a third-party authoring tool, it will only work in desktop and not in the web version. So what the O365 SharePoint guys have done is that rather than having it give the option of whether or not to open a file in the app or the browser, it automatically defaults that you have to open it in the app. So they're already working with the app.
So Christy, we did that. However, when somebody shares a link, it opens it up in the app, in the browser. So that defeated that whole purpose.
Then that's actually not a tech problem. that's actually more of a people problem and in terms of the training. Because also the client has also, what they've done is they've rolled out certain training that it's a combination of both the internal folks and Accenture getting together and pushing it out. And what they've also done is that they've pushed out the templates rather than having any of the support guys install it on a client's machine. They actually have an app called Avanti, a portal manager, which allows a typical end user to install a plugin that they normally wouldn't be able to install.
Yeah, we've switched it to Intune, so we're now installing it via Intune. What was happening is where we were pointing it in Word, we were pointing it at the wrong folder. So we were pointing at one folder above, higher up than what it should have been pointed at. So what they would see when they go to Word, what happens is when you go to Word, you have this shared, and you see two folders instead of actually seeing the what's in the templates folder, and it was just pointing to the wrong level. So, all right. I mean, it kind of answered my question a little bit. Your approach is the same as what I'm taking right now, so that's good to know.
You know.
Oh, we lost your voice, Chrissy.
Chrissy, your mute went on.
Yeah, sorry. It's not my approach because I'm not working directly with Starting Point, but I know that's what my client, the other portion of the client business is doing. Yeah.
That's exactly the approach that we're taking, so it's good to hear.
Awesome. Anybody else have any questions or tips? You know, preferably about a Microsoft product? Just saying.
It interacts with a Microsoft product. Come on.
Actually, Yap has a tip, and what was it? Yeah, how do you say it?
Oh,
Talk to us, Yap.
We just rolled out our Power BI to a bunch of a small group of users, but we didn't want to scare them. So rather than sharing it to them using Power BI, we just framed it in the SharePoint site so they wouldn't be so to keep it simple.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yep.
I like it. Yeah, no, I do lots of solutions where, you know, what the back end technology is, that doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. It's all SharePoint.
Right.
It's all SharePoint. That's all you need to know.
Has anyone ever tried to use Power BI to create a dashboard showing the different versions of project to give you sort of a dashboard of where your projects are at? I mean, I'm talking about we're using Project Online, Project for the Web, and Project itself.
You're using Project Server, or what do you?
Not server, where people take Project and put it in a SharePoint library versus Project Online versus Project for the Web.
By different projects, by different versions, you mean the different statuses of the projects?
Yeah, so we basically want a dashboard saying this project A is here, project B is doing this, project C is doing this. These are the milestones. These are the, you know.
So where are you getting the data from?
So 3 sources: Project Online, Project on the Web, and people. So maybe we have like 10 or 12 different projects going on. And so some PMs are using projects saved in a SharePoint library. Some PMs are using Project on the Web. Some are using Project Online.
Yeah, I've done stuff like that in both SharePoint and Power Apps. So not Power BI, but
Power Apps.
There's lots of ways to skin that cat.
Yeah.
Power Apps is wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
All righty.
So let's move on. Also keep in mind, guys, at the end of this session, we will have a cyber mingle with that where we can all hang out with, and there won't be any recording turned on. So you can bug our presenters then, and I will also be around for that, and we can continue our Q&A there. All right. Once again, just wanted to thank Turn Digital for all of their support. Awesome stuff. And also to all of our previous sponsors. Also, that's another thing. If you guys know of any sponsors or any company that would like to do a sponsorship for us, for a lot of our sponsors, we do actually provide an opportunity for them to give like a 15-minute spiel for their product at the beginning. So it can be some really good promotion and get some good leads out of it. We've had lots of good connections come through our sponsorships in the past. So if anybody's interested or knows somebody that might be interested, please let us know.